Welcome to Government High School Murkibavi online classes. Today we are going to discuss question tag. Question tag is a part of sentence which is asked for confirmation. If we want to make question tags, we have a few general rules. Those rules are: question tag never begins with capital letter and noun form. Example: I is capital here and Rani is a noun. Isn't Rani. So it doesn't become isn't Rani, I capital and Rani. It becomes I is a small letter and instead of Rani it becomes C. Isn't C. And one more example, was is a capital, W is capital and Ramesh. Wasn't Ramesh. So it doesn't become wasn't Ramesh. Instead of wasn't Ramesh it becomes wasn't he. Let's see one more general rule. Question tag always begins with contracted pronoun form. It means contracted means isn't, wasn't, aren't, haven't, hasn't. So here is not running. Is not means it is not in contracted form. It becomes isn't. And Rani, instead of Rani, we have to use say and then use question mark. Let's see. Wasn't Ramesh. Was not Ramesh. It becomes wasn't he. Let's see the third rule. Question tag depends on tense and subject of the statement. Suppose the tense of the statement is in present tense, a verb of the tag becomes do, does, is, or have, etc. If the tense of the statement is in past tense, it becomes did, was, were, had, etc. If the tense of the statement is in future tense, it will become will, shall, etc. If the subject of the statement is this, that, it becomes it in the subject of the tag. And if the subject of the statement is these, those, the subject of the tag becomes they. If we want to make a question tag, we should have the aware of positive statements and negative statements. Positive statements always formed with helping verb or auxiliary verbs do, does, am, is, are, has, have. Means these are the auxiliaries of present tense, and was, were, did, had are the auxiliaries of past tense, and will, shall, these are the auxiliaries of future tense. And negative statements are formed with the words of no, never, not, and little. And sometimes uh, these auxiliaries means what are the positive auxiliary verbs here. These auxiliary verbs plus nt will become negative statements. If you see the examples, you will come to know. Let's see example. Here, Manu eats an apple. It is in a present positive statement. It is a positive statement. It takes doesn't he, because eats is in simple present tense. So eats always takes the auxiliary does, and it is in a positive statement. So we have made here not means in negative sentence tag. Manu is a boy, so the subject of the statement becomes he in the question tag. And finally we have to use question mark. So Manu eats an apple, it the question tag becomes doesn't he. Let's see the second example. Students bring their fair book. So it is also in present tense. Bring, it takes do form of auxiliary, and if the positive statement, if the statement is in positive, we have to make it negative in the statement. So bring is a positive statement, so we used here nt, means not, negative sense. Students are in plural form, so we have used they, and finally we have to use question mark. So the tag of this statement becomes don't they. Let's see the next example. I am a teacher. Here am is also in present tense, so it is an exception case. So if the statement begins or starts with am, the question tag takes, always question tag takes are. So it is in a positive sense, so we make it negative, not, and finally we use the pronoun I and use question mark. So I am a teacher, the statement, and the question tag becomes aren't I. Let's see one more example. They are going. So it is in a positive sense. So helping verb is are. So we use the are, and it is in a positive sense. We make it negative, nt, and pronoun is they, and we use they. The tag of the statement becomes aren't they. Finally, we use question tag. So the question tag becomes aren't they. Let's see one more example. Vijeta has danced in the class. So has is the auxiliary here, and we take has. The statement is positive, we made here nt negative, and Vijeta is a girl. Instead of a noun or a noun we use pronoun she. So and finally we have to use a question mark. So the Vijeta has danced in the class. The tag of this statement becomes hasn't she. Let's see one more example. These pupils completed their work. So here completed is in past tense. So the past tense of the auxiliary is did. So it is in positive sense. So we use not nt, and these pupils are in, the subject of the statement is in plural. So we use pronoun they, and finally we use question mark. The tag of this statement becomes didn't they. Let's see the seventh example. Mukta will sing a song. Here will is the auxiliary. Will, the contrasted form of will becomes won't, positive sense, and we made it negative won't. And Mukta is a girl. Instead of a noun we used pronoun she, and we used question mark. The tag of this statement becomes won't say. See next example. They were good. They were good. Were is the auxiliary, so we use were. It is a positive sense, so we made it a negative by adding nt. And there is a pronoun, we use they as it is, and the tag of the statement becomes weren't they, and ultimately we used question mark. Let's see ninth example. Vivek didn't drive car. So this statement is in negative sense, so nt is here. So if the statement is positive we make it negative in tag. If the statement is negative we make it positive in tag. So here it is already in negative sense, so we make it positive. Did, the auxiliary verb we put here did, and Vivek is boy. So instead of noun we used here pronoun he, and finally we put question mark. So the tag of the statement becomes did he. See the 10th example. Samu never went to Goa. So this statement is also in a negative sense. Never, the word never itself indicates a negative sense. So and went, it is in past tense. So we extracted the helping verb of V2 form did, and Samu is a girl, so we put instead of she instead of proper noun. So the tag of the statement becomes did she, and finally we used question mark. Let's see seventh example. Ram drank little water. So the word little itself indicates a negative sense, and drank is in past tense, so the helping verb or auxiliary form of drank is did, so it is a little negative sense, so we use a positive, not used nt, not any word. So Ram is a boy or a man, so instead of a proper noun we used here he, and finally we used question mark, so the tag of the statement becomes did he. Let's see 12th, 11th, 12th example. Sham doesn't go to school. This statement is also in negative because nt, uh, and we used does, and Sham is a boy or a man, so here instead of a noun we used here pronoun he, and the tag of the statement becomes does he. Let's see next example. Ramya and Raju don't eat non-veg. So he, this statement is also in negative. So don't, don't is in a negative sense, and eat is also a verb. So don't, it is in present tense. So we extracted the auxiliary verb do, and Ramya and Raju are in plural form, so we used they, and finally we used question mark, so the tag of the statement becomes do they. Till we have seen so many examples. Thank you for watching this video.